This is part 26, and from this part onwards we start discussing provisions regarding offenses affecting human body, right from section 299 up to section 377 of the Indian Penal Code. Now, in order to understand various offenses as far as which are affecting human body is concerned, let us start with very simple illustration from day-to-day life. Mr. A throws a piece of chalk into direction of Mr. B, small piece of chalk into direction of Mr. B, which results into death of Mr. B. What is liability of Mr. A? Result is the death, end is the death. What is his liability? Second illustration, Mr. A, this is second situation we are contemplating. Mr. A has given a blow with an ordinary stick, one blow to Mr. B, which has resulted into death of Mr. B. What is his liability? In the third illustration, Mr. A has given 25 blows which has resulted into death of Mr. B. In the next illustration, fourth illustration, Mr. A has given around about 1000 blows to Mr. B, which has resulted into death of Mr. B. And in the last illustration, Mr. A has given n number of blows, 10,000 more than that, which could not be counted, which has resulted into death of Mr. B. What is A's liability? The result is the death. Now, when the result is the death, which are the sections that are made applicable as far as Indian Penal Code is concerned? The first section with which we shall be dealing is the offence of culpable homicide, which is defined by section 299 of the Indian Penal Code. Then we will start discussing section 300 of the Indian Penal Code, and once we start discussing section 300 of the Indian Penal Code, we will come to know that defines the offence of culpable homicide amounting to murder, and the same section also defines the offence of culpable homicide not amounting to murder. We will deal with section 304A, which defines the offence when the death is caused because of a rash or negligent act. Then we shall be dealing with section 304B of the Indian Penal Code, which defines the offence of dowry death. So when the result is the death and the punishment is to be decided taking into consideration the death, namely the result of it, then the liability may be as per any one of these sections, provided the ingredients are fulfilled. But then now in this illustrations that we had started discussing, if A has thrown a small piece of chalk into direction of Mr. B, which results into his death, how to determine the liability? And as a student of law, always remember one principle of the criminal law, and that is, in order to determine criminal liability, we always take into consideration means and not the end. Why is that we take into consideration means? It is because of the means that it is possible for you to infer the intention, and it is the intention that reigns supreme. What was the state of the mind of an individual at the time of doing a particular act shall always be taken into consideration by the court of law in order to determine criminal liability of an individual. Question of proof, no doubt about it, because when we talk about intention, you have to infer the intention. No person who has committed the offence will come to the court of law and will say, well, this was my state of the mind at the time of doing a particular act. Never, never, never. It is always to be inferred by taking into consideration there may be a direct evidence, there may be a circumstantial evidence accordingly, but that is his liability. And hence now, in illustration with which we started our discussion, what is liability of Mr. A, and then let me tell you he is not at all liable for the simple reason that his case falls under section 95 of the Indian Penal Code. General exceptions are general defenses, and general exceptions are exceptions to every section of the Indian Penal Code which defines an act which amounts to an offence. With which I mean we have dealt to a certain extent, but we will work out details as we start with general exceptions right from section 76 up to 106 of the Indian Penal Code. And there, if this is the case, it is best on the maxim de minimis non curat lex, which means law takes no account of trifles. And if you read section 95 of the Indian Penal offence by
reason that it causes, or that is intended to be caused, or that is known to be caused any harm, if that harm is so slight that no person of ordinary sense and temper would complain of such harm. So that is, I mean, that will not amount to an offence as far as section 95. So if at all he is charged for any one of the sections which deal with death, he can say, well, I am not liable because my case is protected, I get benefit as far as section 95 of the Indian Penal Code is concerned. With this now, if one blow with the help of an ordinary stick is given which has resulted into death of Mr. B, what is liability? And hence, though the chapter starts right from section 299 onwards, instead of starting with section 299 as far as our discussion regarding this group of sections is concerned, or these offences affecting the human body is concerned, we will start discussing right from section 319. Now first of all we will deal with section 319, which defines hurt, and it says whoever causes bodily pain, disease or infirmity to any person is said to cause hurt. And then as we read section 320, which defines what do you mean by grievous hurt, it says the following kinds of hurt only are designated as grievous, and 8 kinds of hurt are enumerated as far as section 320 is concerned. And if the hurt falls under any one of the 8 categories, then in that case we said that is what is known as a grievous hurt. But as a student learning Indian Penal Code, you will come to know hurt is not at all an offence. Whoever causes death by doing an act with the intention of causing, whoever causes bodily pain, disease or infirmity to any person is said to cause hurt. What do you mean by hurt? But hurt is not an offence. What is an offence? Voluntarily causing hurt, as it is defined by section 321, is an offence. Section 320, the kinds of following, it says the following kinds of hurt only are designated as grievous and 8 categories are enumerated. That is not an offence. When it can be said that it is grievous hurt is defined by section 320. But then if you read section 322, it says voluntarily causing grievous hurt is an offence as far as section 322 is concerned. So when you want to start discussion as far as this particular part of the chapter is concerned, it's not only one section, but section 319 to be read with section 320, to be read with section 321 and 322 are the sections which we are supposed to read, and that is, I can say, a simple offence with which we will start our discussion as far as offences affecting the human body is concerned. A blow is given, a slap is given, a stone is thrown, you push somebody. Well, these are the cases where that results into bodily pain, and hence I mean your intention is not to kill, your intention is not to cause any serious harm, or it is your intention is not to cause that it should be something serious. Then what is your liability? Liability is dealt as per any one of these sections with which we intend to start our discussion. Now, what is voluntarily? Voluntarily explains the state of the mind of an individual, and then it has been explained by section 321 and 322. But in general, understanding regarding the term voluntarily can be clear provided you have reference back, and you have reference back to general explanations and then you start finding out as to what is the meaning of this term voluntarily. And as you start finding out meaning of the term voluntarily, and when you come to start and then it is section 39 of the Indian Penal Code which defines voluntarily. And then as you start reading the section, you will come to it says a person is said to cause an effect voluntarily when he causes it by means whereby he intended to cause it, or by means which at the time of employing those means he knew or had reason to believe to be likely to cause it. So that is generally if anybody is asked what do you mean by voluntarily, he may say of his own accord. But as far as this section and rest of the sections where voluntarily plays very important role, which explains mens rea, which explains the state of the mind of an individual, guilty mind, with which a particular act is done, this is not of your will, but then it is as you classify this section, which is exactly done as far as section 321 and 322 is concerned. If you do an act with the intention, it can be said that it is done voluntarily. If it is not done with the intention, but you with the knowledge that it is likely thereby to cause, then in that case also we say it is done voluntarily as far as this is concerned. With this now, as we proceed further, right from section 323 up to section 338 are the sections which deal with punishment. And this punishment, I have told you in the past, what is important? Right from section 319 up to section 338 of the Indian Penal Code, as far as this chapter is concerned, we will confine our attention to section 319, section 320, section 321 and section 322 of the Indian Penal Code. That's all. Rest of the sections, as they deal with punishment depends upon various factors. For example, and the quantum of the punishment I need not tell you, but I will just start reading the headings of the section as far as the punishment is concerned. 323, punishment for voluntarily causing hurt. Section 324, voluntarily causing hurt by dangerous weapons or means. Section 325, punishment for voluntarily causing grievous hurt. Section 326, voluntarily causing grievous hurt by dangerous weapons or means. Section 327, voluntarily causing hurt to extort property or to constrain to an illegal act. 328, causing hurt by means of poison etc. with intent to commit an offence. Section 329, voluntarily causing grievous hurt to extort property or to constrain to an illegal act. Section 330, voluntarily causing hurt to extort confession or to compel restoration of property. Section 331, voluntarily causing grievous hurt to extort confession or to compel restoration of property. Section 332, voluntarily causing hurt to deter public servant from his duty. Section 333, voluntarily causing grievous hurt to deter public servant from his duty. Section 334, voluntarily causing hurt on provocation. Section 335, voluntarily causing grievous hurt on provocation. 336, act endangering life or personal safety of others. Section 337, causing hurt by act endangering life or personal safety of others. 338, causing grievous hurt by act endangering life or personal safety of others. So these are the sections which deal with punishment. If at all, from the point of view of practice in a court of law, or from the point of view of understanding the criminal procedure code, the person is always charged as per that section which does not define an act which amounts to an offence, but what is the quantum of the punishment that can be inflicted by the court of law. As once you understand what is hurt and what is grievous hurt, it will be very easy for you to understand these sections. Since I shall not be dealing with this section, but we will only concentrate as far as the sections, namely 319, 320, 321 and 322, whereby the offences are defined. Now, if we start reading section 319, which says, whoever causes bodily pain, disease, or infirmity to any person is said to cause hurt. And then the following kinds, 8 categories as they are enumerated, they amount to what do you mean by grievous hurt. But before we start, this can be understood subject to one condition, and what is that? That you have understood what do you mean by voluntarily. If A takes a stone and he throws that stone into direction of Mr. B, which results into bodily pain, what is liability of Mr. A? A is liable for the offense of voluntarily causing hurt because his intention was to cause bodily pain. This is one case situation. The second situation would be A not knowing where is Mr. B. A is sitting on the third floor of his building in the balcony, and from there, without finding out whether somebody is on the road or not, he throws a stone from top floor to the ground floor, which hits Mr. B on his head. Now, can Mr. A come out with a defense and say, well, Your Honor, I had no intention to cause bodily pain. I never knew that he was going by that particular road, and hence I am not liable. The court will say, well, gentlemen, what is an offense? Your throwing of a throne has resulted into causing of a bodily pain. And when it is an offense, voluntarily causing hurt. And what is voluntarily causing hurt? Whoever does any act with the intention of thereby causing hurt to any person, or with the knowledge that he is likely thereby to cause hurt to any person and does thereby cause hurt to any person, is said voluntarily to cause hurt. So there are two aspects. One, when the act is done with the intention, it can be said that it is done voluntarily. If the act is not done with the intention, as in this illustration, then what we say, even though it is not done with the intention, you have got knowledge of what? Knowledge of the end. Because of what? Because of the means that are employed by you. And hence, when the act might not have been done with the intention, but if it is done with the knowledge that the means which are employed by him are such which is going to result into bodily pain to somebody, and hence I told you, for this reason now it is necessary for you to have reference to section 39. A person is said to cause an effect voluntarily who causes it by means whereby he intended to cause it, or by means where at the time of employing those means he knew and had reason to believe to be likely to cause it. And what is the meaning of the term reason to believe? For that you have to refer to section 26, which says a person is said to have reason to believe a thing if he has got sufficient cause to believe that thing, but not otherwise, as far as section 26 is concerned, with which we have dealt during course of our lecture. So now this is a time where if they act, or let me take a very interesting illustration from day-to-day life. A wanted to commit theft with respect to the money purse which B was carrying, or the money that he had in his pocket, and for the purpose of committing the offense of theft as defined by section 378, what he had done, he had cut a blade into pieces, kept a small piece of blade under his nail, and he wanted to cut the lower pocket of maybe of bush shirt or shirt where he had kept currency notes, so that as soon as he cuts the lower pocket, and he will hold his hand in such a manner as if that is a gift which is given to him by the God, and then he will run away with the money. Yes, he started cutting lower part of the pocket. He was successful in getting money, but simultaneously he had cut some, as this Mr. B was wearing bush shirt next to the body, some part of the body it had caused hurt bodily pain to his chest also. Now what is like A, when the matter went to the court of law, A very honestly and sincerely confessed by saying that, well, my intention was to commit the offense of theft. I had intention, there was a preparation, there was an attempt which was successful, hence I am liable for the offense of theft. But Your Honor, I had no intention to cause bodily pain. Now, if this is the argument which is advanced by Mr. A, what will be the approach of the court of law? Court will say, gentlemen, in case when you talk about voluntarily causing hurt, It is not only that you should have intention. You may have intention or you may not have. Yes, if you have got intention, it can be said that it is done voluntarily. As far as the first part is concerned, we says whoever who does any act with the intention of thereby causing hurt to any person. So if that is the intention, yes, you are liable. But the second part says, or with the knowledge that he is likely thereby to cause hurt to any person and does thereby cause to any hurt to any person, is said voluntarily to cause hurt. As throwing of the stone from the second floor to the ground floor, in this case pickpocketer had knowledge of the consequences because of the means that was employed by him, and hence what is said, pickpocketer is also liable for the offence of voluntarily causing hurt, because though he had no intention, he had knowledge of the consequences because of the means that were employed by him, and hence that is his liability as far as section 321 of the Indian Penal Code is concerned. Now what I mean, this I have explained right in the beginning state of the mind, so that during course of time, as we start, whoever causes bodily pain. Now the pain, I mean, you have to understand the meaning of the pain as it is understood in day-to-day life, or as far as medical science is concerned. You give blow to somebody, you give blow with the help of the hand, you give blow, you slap somebody, you throw stone into direction of somebody, you go give blow with the stick, you give blow with the soda water, I mean anything because of which, I mean, you that results into bodily pain. And then secondly it says disease or infirmity. Now imagine a situation where a man used to bring milk from his village and used to, I mean, sell that milk or distribute that milk to his customers in the city. One day it so happened that generally he used to carry round about 30 liters of milk, but that day he had an order for an extra order for 3 liters of the milk. And then from when he started from his residence, he had just carried 30 liters of milk only. Now while coming, he remembered that it is must for him to have 3 more liters, and then this man took just, I mean, dirty water which was by the side of the road from a pond and mixed it with the milk that was, I mean, distributed to the customer. They consumed and they started, I mean, showing symptoms of maybe some fever or dysentery or diarrhea, whatever it might be. Now what is his liability? Can he say, well, I mean, I had no intention? Yes, he had no intention, absolutely correct, no doubt about it. But he had knowledge of what consequences, because of what? Because of the means that were employed by him. When you add dirty water, there is every chance or possibility that a dirty water is bound to contain certain germs. And when the milk is meant for the purpose of human consumption, and if it is consumed, though he had no intention. So this is, I mean, exactly, if this is, or the man who is having a suffering because of the contagious disease, deliberate, he sits by the side of somebody because of which the contact the disease spreads. This is, I mean, what is known as a disease. So whoever causes bodily pain, disease or infirmity to any person is said to cause hurt. Now what is infirmity? Infirmity is inability of an organ to function normally. And when, for example, when there was a quarrel between landlord and tenant, and landlord wanted tenant to vacate the premises, but the tenant was not ready and willing. The matter was pending for n number of years in a court of law. One day during night hours, when tenant's wife came and she was about to open the lock, this landlord had put on black dress, and then put that lady into fear, because of which she had a mental shock and she had to undergo medical treatment for a period of 8 days or so. So now here this is infirmity of a, what do you mean by infirmity? Inability of an organ to function normally. Her body was intact, but the mind was not intact, and we say this amounts to what do you mean by infirmity. So this is correlate. Once you want to take into consideration the illustrations with which you are dealing, For the purpose of understanding illustrations, you must be in a position to understand. I mean, whoever causes bodily pain, disease, or infirmity to any person is said to cause hurt, no doubt about it. But what do you mean by what? It's not, hurt is not an offense. Voluntarily causing hurt is an offense which is which is defined as far as section 321 is concerned. That's why right in the beginning I explained what do you mean by voluntarily. Now, as we proceed to section 320, which the following kinds of hurt only are designated as grievous, and then it starts with the first category that is enumerated is emasculation. Now, emasculation is depriving a man of his masculine vigor. As I mean in ordinary English, that is what is known as castration, that can be committed only with respect to a man, and hence if the act, I mean, of the person results into emasculation, depriving a man of his masculine vigor, then we say he is liable, or his liability is for the offense of voluntarily causing grievous hurt, or that amounts to grievous hurt because it falls under first category. Secondly, it says permanent privation of the sight of either eye. Now, if the blow is given on the eye, or if acid is thrown into the direction of an eye, and because of which the man he has lost his eyesight, permanent privation of the sight of either, it is not both the eyes, one eye also, but if the blow which is given on the eye, if the cut is given to an eye, if the if a bullet is fired into direction of an eye, or whatever any acid is thrown into the direction of the eye, as a result of which he has lost, it is not possible for him to see with the help of an eye, then we say permanent privation of the sight of either eye amounts to what do you mean by grievous hurt. So it is second category says permanent privation of the sight of either eye. With this now, the third category, permanent privation of the hearing of either eye. A blow is given on the ear, as a result of which he cannot hear with the help of ear, and if that is forever, permanent, mind well, is very important. And if it is permanent privation of the hearing of either eye, because of the nature of the hurt that is caused to the ear, the person has lost his hearing capacity of any one of the ear forever. He cannot hear with the help of the ear. Then we say this is what is known as grievous hurt, third category, permanent privation of the hearing of either eye. So that is his liability. If the hurt, for as we have read, the following kinds of hurt only are designated as grievous. So that is, this is grievous. Firstly, emasculation. 2, permanent privation of the sight of either eye. 3, permanent privation of the hearing of either eye. Privation of any member or joint. The act is done in such a manner where you deprive of any member. Member is the part of the body or the joint. It is not possible for him to function with the help of that particular joint. The blows are given on the joint in such a manner so that his joint becomes a joint. He cannot use the joint at all. He has been deprived of his privation of any member or joint. That is the fourth category. Fifthly, it says destruction or permanent impairing of the powers of any member or joint. If there is a destruction of the what? Destruction or permanent impairing of the powers of any member or joint. The hurt is done in such a manner as a result of which there is a total destruction or permanent impairing of the powers of it. It is not possible for him to make use of the member. That is, the organ cannot be used for whatever purpose it could have been used, or if there is destruction of joint or permanent impairing of powers of any joint, that will constitute liability, that will amount to what do you mean by grievous hurt. Sixthly, it says permanent disfiguration of head or face. Part of the nose is cut, part of the ear is cut, blow is given with the help of an axe, as a result of which the scar is there. So what it says, permanent disfiguration of the head or the face will constitute liability or will amount to what do you mean by grievous hurt as far as the sixth category is concerned. Seventhly, it says fracture or dislocation or bone or tooth. And it says fracture. Blow is given on the wrist as a result of which he has got pains for 10 days, hurt. But blow is given on the wrist as a result of which that has resulted into fracture. And what is the meaning of fracture? In general, when there is breaking of the bone, we say there was a fracture. But as far as medical science is concerned, if the blow results into even hair crack, which you can only notice because of the X-ray examination, that will amount to what do you mean by fracture, and hence this will amount to what do you mean by grievous hurt. One slap is given as a result of which 5 fingerprints are on the chip for a period of 5 days, that will amount to simple hurt. But if one blow is given with, slap is given with such a force as a result of which few teeth or one tooth comes out of the comes out of the mouth, there is a dislocation of tooth, that will amount to what do you mean by grievous hurt. A hand is taken for the purpose of shaking and you press the hand. So you press the hand because of which he has got pains for a period of 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Well, that will amount to what do you mean by hurt. But if the hand is taken and jerk is given to the hand in such a manner because of which his hand is in your hand, namely the person who is giving jerk to the hand, in that case there is a dislocation of bone, and hence that will amount to what do you mean by grievous hurt as dealt by 7th clause as far as this section 320 of the Indian Penal Code with which we are dealing. With this now, lastly it says any hurt which endangers life or which causes the sufferer to be during the space of 20 days in severe bodily pain or unable to follow his ordinary pursuits. Now what is the nature of the hurt? If it doesn't fall under any one of, imagine a situation where a person, whatever may be the reason, is caught hold by 10 persons. He is taken outside the city and they started beating him. So they stand in a circle and the blow is given. So he goes to one person, from there the blow is given, and this continues for a period of 30 minutes or so. Ultimately, what is the result? There is no emasculation. There is no permanent privation of the sight of either eye. There is no permanent privation of the hearing of either eye. There is no privation of any member or joint. There is no destruction or permanent impairing of the powers of any member or joint. There is no permanent disfiguration of the head or face. There is no fracture or dislocation of bone or tooth. But then, when the matter goes to the court of law, and if it can be proved that the nature of the hurt is such, which any hurt which endangers life, so the which life was in danger, or which causes the sufferer to be during the space of, here 20 days is very important. If the person, it causes sufferer to be during the space of 20 days in severe, he has got severe bodily pains for a period of 20 days. It's not that he should be admitted to the hospital, but he has got severe bodily pains for a period of 20 days, or the person was unable to follow, because of such beatings, he was unable to follow his ordinary pursuit for a period of 20 days. Then in that case, this last category, 8th category, says it will amount to what do you mean by grievous hurt as far as this is concerned. So, in a case where one blow is given, we go back to the illustration with which we started our discussion. One blow is given which has resulted into death of Mr. B. Liability of Mr. A is only for the offence of voluntarily causing hurt, because in order to determine liability, we always take into consideration means and not the end. So one blow, if it was given, what you can say, whether what was his intention, what was his knowledge, and hence his case will fall under section 321 of the Indian Penal Code. In a case where 25 blows are given, which has resulted into, his case falls under any one of the 8 categories that are enumerated, then his liability, even though the result is the death, his liability would be for the offence of voluntarily causing grievous hurt as defined by section 322 of the Indian Penal Code, even though the result is the death. When we proceed further and then say 10,000 blows, or the blows which could not be counted, were given which has resulted into death, what is the liability? So with this now we will shift to what? We will shift to section 299 of the Indian Penal Code and section 300 of the Indian Penal Code. As far as the last situation and last but situation is concerned, you can understand liability provided you have understood what do you mean by culpable homicide and what do you mean by culpable homicide amounting to murder and culpable homicide not amounting to murder. Now, in order to understand the general concept as far as the murder is concerned, or the offense of culpable homicide not amounting to murder is concerned, or whatever it might be, as a person learning this, it is must for you to learn both the sections, namely section 299. You have to carry out analysis of the section and then find out, do this homework, write down 3 ingredients as far as section 299 is concerned. Along with this, we will also take into consideration 3 explanations to the section. And then once we finish with this, as we start proceeding, section 300 starts with the wording, except in the cases hereinafter accepted, culpable homicide is murder. So, in order to constitute liability for the offense of murder, which is defined by section 300 of the Indian Penal Code, we must first of all come to section 299, which defines the offense of culpable homicide. But then, to understand this, it is also necessary for you to know as to what do you mean by homicide. And then, homicide does mean killing of human being by human being. If one human being kills another human being, and then we say it is what is known as homicide. This homicide can be lawful homicide. And what do you mean by lawful homicide? Killing of human being by human being which is not made punishable by the provisions of the Indian Penal Code. And when killing of human being by human being is not made punishable by the provisions of the Indian Penal Code, provided your act has resulted into death of the person, but if it falls under any one of the exceptions right from section 76 up to 106 of the Indian Penal Code, such killing of human being by human being shall not be made punishable by the provisions of the Indian Penal Code. So it is what is known as lawful homicide. If it is not lawful homicide, then what we say? It is what is known as culpable, it is what is known as unlawful, it is what is known as criminal, it is what is known as made punishable by the provisions of the Indian Penal Code. So now we must know first of all the distinction between culpable homicide and culpable homicide amounting to murder, what is known as murder in day-to-day life. Now, if this can be understood by you only by having comparison as far as the wording of the ingredients of section 299, and this you can do homework. You have to compare first ingredient of section, as far as section 299 is concerned, there are 3 ingredients. As far as section 300 is concerned, there are 4 ingredients. So you have to compare first ingredient of section 299 with that of first ingredient as far as section 300 of the Indian Penal Code is concerned. Second ingredient of section 299 is required to be compared with that of second and third ingredient as far as section 300 of the Indian Penal Code is concerned. The third ingredient of section 299 is required to be compared with that of fourth ingredient as far as section 300 of the Indian Penal Code is concerned. And when you start comparing, I am just introducing, we will take you into consideration illustrations, no doubt about it, in order to make this very clear. But then as you go on comparing, you will find out distinction between the same. And the distinction is based on what? As a principle of the criminal law, in order to determine criminal liability, we always take into consideration means and not the end. And then it is the degree of probability that determines criminal liability. When the death is probable, liability of an individual is for the offense of culpable homicide. When the death is most probable, liability of an individual is for the offense of culpable homicide amounting to murder. When there is likelihood of death, liability of an individual is for the offense of culpable homicide. When there is certainty of death, liability of an individual is for the offense of culpable homicide amounting to murder, with which we shall be dealing. But then the section starts with what? Except, in the cases hereinafter accepted. And hence now
if even though there is certainty of death, but if the case falls under any one of the 5 exceptions, so we will try to understand 5 exceptions that are laid down as far as section 300 is concerned. And if the case falls under any one of the exceptions, then the liability of an individual is for the offense of culpable homicide not amounting to murder, which is also an offense. So culpable homicide is an offense, culpable homicide amounting to murder is an offense, and culpable homicide not amounting to murder is also an offense, which is dealt as far as the next second part. I can say, though there are no parts as such, we have to have parts so that understanding of the particular section becomes very clear. So this is the liability, and the punishment will depend upon, as far as section 302 is concerned and section 304 is concerned. And rest of the part as far as this chapter is, as usual, we will start with the illustration and then continue our discussion from the point of view of knowing the distinction, and then try to understand when the liability is for the offense of culpable homicide not amounting to murder by taking into consideration 5 exceptions, and then proceed further accordingly as far as next part of our lecture is concerned.